But 2 years ago, I was really fat.
Yeah.
Right? What do you mean, yeah?
I'm just listening to you, man. I'm not saying you were. I'm just saying, yes, I'm listening to your conversation. 皆さんこんにちは、アーサーです。いつも IU-Connect 動画をご覧いただき誠にありがとうございます。今回の動画はあなたのリスニングを鍛えるためにネイティブ同士の会話をお届けしたいと思います。で、いつもと同じようにもともと The Austin and Arthur Show の映像を撮って英語と日本語の字幕を両方つけたものをお届けしたいと思います。両方がついているので自分の理解度と自分のリスニングを両方確かめるのでおすすめです。お役に立てたらとっても嬉しいです。で、今回の内容はオーセンとお話ししてアメリカと日本の医療制度の違いについてお話ししました。英語だと healthcare というキーワードなんですけど、アメリカの医療制度はかなり高くて、やっぱり一番すごいと思ったのはやっぱりこの医療制度のことですね。And so we will talk about this topic together. So ぜひ今回の動画は日本語と英語の字幕が両方ついてるんですが、他に聞きたいトピックがありましたらぜひコメント欄でシェアしてね。I would love to see your comments. And with that, let's get started.
All right.
乾杯, man.
乾杯.
You can't say no to Yokota and Akita.
Yeah, this is really good.
Yeah. 1 second. I think my my microphone. I'm going to sit like this because my microphone
Okay.
kind of moves.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll just do this.
So this is our first episode in
the new
place.
studio. Yeah.
So this is I don't know. It feels a little weird.
I know it does feel a little weird
Yeah.
because there's like a bit of an echo too.
Yeah, a little bit, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe we have to get like some like soundproofing
Yeah.
stuff.
But it actually doesn't hit the mic that bad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's nice.
But so tell me, what do you want to talk about this week?
So a couple things. So I'm kind of in the festive mood. So
Okay.
I want to talk about Christmas and
Yeah.
New Year's.
Okay.
And I'm also pretty excited because we got pictures of like my unborn child.
Oh, really?
And
how many months is it now?
4.5.
4. Okay. Do you
Something
know
like
the
that.
gender yet?
Not yet. So we potentially could have learned it yesterday.
Okay.
But there was just a big old butt in the picture.
He's mooning you.
Yeah. So I've been told that if you can't readily identify the gender, it's usually a girl.
Yeah, right.
I don't know how true that is, but I've been told that.
Okay. I mean, that would kind of make sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, if all you see is a butt, then
Yeah,
you
it's
don't
kind
really
of
know.
like it is really interesting though because you've experienced this as well, but we've got to have pictures. So first it started off we were getting pictures like almost every week. It was like every 2 weeks, and then we transitioned into once a month. And so it's been a while since Yui's been to the hospital, and so I've watched this like fetus slowly develop, and what's been really interesting is like this last picture was the first time it actually looked like a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so right now, if you see like the head, there's still like an eye socket forming, but like there's like a very clear eye.
Yeah.
And it's like dead gazing into
it's
the
kind
picture.
of weird.
Like, oh
isn't
man,
it?
that's
But it's
weird.
like
That's creepy.
Yeah. Actually, now that you say that, one thing I do I would like to talk about is like the medical system, the healthcare system in the States versus here.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot to talk. Well, there's a lot to complain about.
Yeah.
On the American side.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was in a festive mood, but
Oh, no,
I guess we'll talk about depressing stuff.
No. We could talk about that too. Like,
Yeah.
because you're talking about going to the doctor's office. Because
Yeah.
how much is it costing you per visit?
It kind of varies.
Yeah.
So the last time we went, she had to get like some X-rays and stuff done. So it was actually pretty expensive. It was like $500.
Okay, that's
But most of the time it's been like about $40.
Yeah, right.
Like about 4,000 or 5,000 yen.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I've never had a kid in America, so I don't know how much that costs, but I would, if I were to guess, it's probably more.
Yeah. So I heard that like, so I don't know, I've never had a kid in the United States, but I heard that like,
giving birth at a hospital will cost you like upwards of $10,000 in the United States.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would assume that the vast majority of that gets covered by health insurance. But maybe I'm wrong.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Like here it actually does. So like that was one thing. Like Natsumi said it was going to cost us like $5,000, but we ended up paying like almost nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, especially here in Japan, they'll actually pay you for having a kid.
Yeah, right.
Because like the population is going down so much.
Yeah.
But man, do you have any bad hospital stories in America? Because I have a lot.
I didn't go to the hospital that much, but I want to hear.
Okay.
First of all, let's talk about like what would you say is the biggest difference between like going to the hospital or getting a checkup in Japan versus the United States?
So before we even jump into that question, I'd like to talk about like I guess sick culture.
Okay.
First, because I think there's a huge difference between America and Japan on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I'll tell you, maybe you had a similar experience when you first came here. But when I came here, the first year I was living here, you get colds, right? Yeah. Just like anywhere else, right? And so I got a cold, and one of my coworkers came up to me and was like, "Oh, wow, you look sick. You should go to the hospital."
Yeah, right. And
as an American, I'm thinking, I'm like, why
would you go to the hospital?
Yeah, why would I go to the hospital? I'm not dying. It's just a freaking cold.
Yeah.
And that's where you notice there's a huge difference between Japan and America.
Yeah.
In America, a big reason is due to the cost.
Yeah.
The big reason you don't go. But generally, people kind of just put up with stuff.
Yeah.
Or they'll go get over-the-counter drugs.
Yeah.
So they'll go to a pharmacy and get... I noticed that American pharmacies tend to have a lot stronger medication than Japanese ones. But here in Japan, it's like, if you even have allergies, you go to the hospial.
Yeah, right.
And so that... I still can't get used to that.
Yeah, it was funny. So I had something wrong with my eye for a while.
Yeah.
And... I looked up what it was, and I found out that of course I can go to the doctor, but I can also get medicine.
Yeah.
Right. So I just bought the medicine for $15.
Yeah.
And I just started applying it, and then Natsumi is like, "Why don't you just go to the doctor?" It's like, "Oh, I didn't even think about that. I could have gone to the doctor, I guess, but I don't want to."
Yeah. It probably would have been cheaper too.
Yeah, probably would have been. It's just it's like a cultural difference, right? So this kind of actually goes to I saw a post one of my students left in my community about how people relate to the weather, which was interesting when it's a rainy day, because here people use umbrellas all the time.
Okay.
And what he said, because he was talking with one of his American friends, maybe you can vouch for this or not, but one of the reasons why in the States you don't use an umbrella is because it feels like you're kind of losing to the weather, you're kind of like a wuss or something.
You know what? People think I'm crazy because it's Seattle culture. You do not use umbrellas.
Yeah.
If you go to Seattle, you will not see people use umbrellas at all.
But why don't you use umbrellas? What's the psychology behind it?
I think maybe some of it's losing to the weather, but also it's I just can't be asked to wear or bring an umbrella everywhere. I have a rain jacket. It's fine.
Yeah.
Another big thing is I think Americans spend... Or maybe it's not right for me to say Americans, but people in Seattle spend a lot less time outside than people here in at least Tokyo.
Yeah.
Because back when I was in Seattle, I was driving everywhere.
Yeah.
And the weather sucks, so I don't go out very often. So
yeah, but even so, with so my parents came and visited for 2 weeks, and I asked them to use an umbrella because it was raining outside when we would go sometimes, and they felt kind of uncomfortable, umbrella. I mean, I know to use this, but my dad especially was like, "I'm not going to use an umbrella."
Yeah.
What do you think? I'm like, I'm not. Why would I use an umbrella? I have a jacket. Why would I use an umbrella?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of goes back to the doctor culture, where it's if I go to the doctor, it means I'm helpless and I can't take care of myself or something.
No, I definitely agree.
Yeah. There's a big difference, I think.
So going back. Kind of talking about some differences in how hospitals are here.
Yeah.
One big difference, I think, is ambulances.
Ambulances?
So when I was in the Marines, I got injured, and I had to get rushed to a hospital. It wasn't a serious injury. I no, that's not when I hurt my foot. I don't even remember. I think I sliced my hand. Actually, I have a huge
that's
scar.
a big scar. Man.
Yeah,
that's
it
not
went
very
like
small, man.
Yeah. So we were training to go to Afghanistan, and I was crawling through barbed wire, and it sliced my hand up.
Man.
And so luckily it wasn't rusted.
Yeah,
so
right.
You'd have to get a tetanus shot. But so I had to go to the hospital, and so I remember an ambulance came out and picked me up, and it was on base. It wasn't a very far. It was like maybe a 20-minute ambulance ride, and I remember it was all paid for by the government, but they still send you a bill, right? Okay. And so I remember getting the bill. It was $5,000.
$5,000 for
just
a 20-minute
send that ambulance.
Okay.
Yeah, $5,000.
Wow.
Isn't that insane?
That's really expensive.
You know, so when people talk about how expensive healthcare is in America, it's like just a small ambulance ride will be on average several $1,000s.
Yeah, it's like even so when I went to the dentist in America, I'm on Shakai Hoken right now, by the way. So when I went to get my regular dental cleaning, you know, like once every 6 months or whatever, it would cost me about like $150 in the States.
Yeah.
And here it cost me like $30 to $40. I had an X-ray last time I went, so it was 4,000 yen.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I told that to my parents, and they're like, "Wow, don't move back to the States."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when COVID first started here. So this was during the summer, and I got like a really bad cold where I actually had breathing problems.
Oh wow. Okay. Are you sure it wasn't COVID?
Yeah, so I got tested and it came out negative. So probably it wasn't COVID. That's what the doctor, because like the doctor was saying like, oh, there's not many cases in Otaku, so it'd be kind of strange if you got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was really, I mean, everyone was panicking back then, right. So like we called we called an ambulance, and they came and picked us up, and the ambulance was free.
Ambulance was free?
Ambulance was free.
Wow.
Or maybe it was like $20 or something, but it was still essentially free.
Yeah, it wasn't 50 万yen. It was just
yeah. So that was a huge difference because I was stressing out. I'm like, dude, don't call the ambulance. Like that's gonna be so expensive. Like it's okay, we'll just walk.
Yeah,
you know.
You know, it's funny because I remember seeing a sign. I forget where it was, but I saw a sign for an ambulance that said, only call an ambulance in an emergency because other people may need to use it and you don't want to be using it. I'm like, do people really call ambulances that often that they need to have those warning signs? Yeah. Because like in the States, people will be like dying and they say, don't call an ambulance. I can't afford it, you know?
Yeah. So in my area where my apartment is
now in Japan.
Yes.
Okay.
There's a lot of old people around me, and that like an ambulance gets called to my area like probably almost every day.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
To the point where I feel like they're just calling it to get a ride to the hospital.
I mean, they may.
You know. So that's a huge difference. Another thing is, I will say the healthcare that I've experienced in Japan has been kind of a mixed bag.
Okay.
Whereas the healthcare that I've experienced in America has mostly been really good.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of depends on where you're going here in Japan. Like when I went to a hospital here, really nice service, really high quality medical care. I felt like I was taken care of. And I had some kind of bad experiences with clinics here.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the clinic, right? Because they're much more flexible. Because I have two, you know. One thing that really surprised me though was when I got my my medical checkup. Just, you know, in English we call it a checkup. I forget in Japanese, what do you call it? Kenshin or something. Yuri, what do you call like なんかその全体的な健康を確認するための審査定期検査 Kenshin. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did my Teiki Kenshin here, right?
Yeah.
Just a medical checkup.
Yeah.
And it was weird because like I was in a lobby and then there were all these different rooms with different doctors in them, and I had to go into each room separately. Whereas like in the States, when you do your medical checkup, you're in the same room and the doctor's with you doing like everything with you. It happens in that one individual room, but instead of me like, I feel like I was almost going to school or something, moving the classrooms.
You know, it's really funny you mentioned that. So, actually, you probably don't experience this because you're a private business owner. But like normal business employee or like company employees and school teachers also have a yearly medical check where everyone in the company will come in and like they'll usually bring in like doctors and nurses to the school or company, and they'll do checks there. So another thing that's a huge difference between Japan and America for medical stuff is how public your medical records are.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, like people like, so you're getting all your medical checks basically right next to your coworkers, so your coworkers can hear everything the doctor's saying.
Right.
They know how much you weigh, they'll know your blood pressure and everything because everyone's in the same room. And you'll go get like a checkup with privately with the doctor, but the only thing that's really like separating you from other teachers is just a curtain.
Right. It's not like a different room, it's a curtain.
And like people will openly discuss like private medical stuff. Such as like like so after you get the medical check, like a month later you'll get like this big packet. Right. And the packet has I don't know if you've seen it before, but it's like this 4-page document that'll go over like all your medical stuff,
and the variables and stuff.
And it'll give you a grade.
And it gives you a grade.
It gives you a grade. It says A, B, C, D, F, right? And F is like, holy shit, you're dying. Like, go to the hospital now. C is like, your body sucks. You should probably take care of yourself more. And, and it goes up and everything, right? And for the longest time, so I've been kind of on and off trying to like be healthy, and I'm actually kind of swinging more into the healthy phase now. I'm trying to go back into dieting and exercise. But 2 years ago, I was really fat. Right? What do you mean, yeah?
I'm just listening to you, man. I'm not saying you were. I'm just saying, yes, I'm listening to your conversation.
But 2 years ago, I was really fat. And so I would get on my medical check. Like, it would show that I was starting to develop, what's it called? Fatty liver. And so it'll say, like, on your liver that, like, it's starting to have a problem, like, processing sugar, whatever. Anyways, so I would get C's. On my liver check. And that information, like, so you can see the last year's information because you have to bring that card with you when you're getting a medical check. So other teachers will kind of pry over and look at the person next to them, and so I always get a hard time from like the other teachers in my grade. They're always like,
Austin, you have a fatty liver.
Yeah, your cholesterol's pretty high. Like, you should exercise more. And
that's
it's like,
so illegal in America.
You know what I mean? And like, people will go up and like grab your stomach and be like, whoa, wow, you're still kind of fat. Like, so that's just something you would never see in America.
Everything is super private in America.
Super private. You wouldn't even bring up medical records.
It's illegal to like talk about medical checks in interviews and stuff.
Oh, completely. Man,
I can't believe that. Like, that's so public, man.
Yeah, and it's not malicious.
Yeah, it's not at all.
It's just it's like it's here in Japan, just discussing your medical history is just not considered taboo. It's just something because it generally comes from concern. People want you to be healthy. So in many ways they're just kind of looking out for your well-being, but that is something that I think people moving here, that is a huge like just surprise when they come here, because like especially Americans, it's like you don't talk about your medical history, you don't talk about politics or religion or money.
It's almost like if I were to talk about my medical history or people saw my medical records, it almost feel like I'm naked in front of them.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
So So I want to talk about some other stuff that I've experienced in America. Sorry, I'm talking so much.
No, dude, this is great.
Should,
no. I'm sharing
too.
my experiences too.
Yeah.
I'm sharing my experiences too.
So in America, I actually have free healthcare.
Oh yeah, because you were in the Army.
Yeah, well, Marines.
Sorry,
how dare you?
I'm sorry. Thank you for your service.
There's a huge difference.
There's a big difference.
It was just Veterans Day, so you should give me a little respect.
I'm sorry, Mr. Marine. Thank you for your service.
So, I got injured in the Marines, and I'm not going to go into details on that because I'm American. I don't talk about my medical history. And anyways, long story short, I have free medical care. So the only stipulation is I have to go to what's called a veterans hospital.
Okay.
And when I said that American hospitals tend to be high quality, in fact, they're considered to generally be the best medical care you can receive in the world.
Yeah.
Veteran hospitals are not that.
Yeah, I would think so.
It's not that the doctors are poor, because the doctors are usually volunteering basically to work there because they're taking huge pay cuts and stuff, and they have to work longer hours. But the main reason is they're understaffed.
Yeah,
and so there's a lot of homeless people who go there, and they tend to be just packed.
Yeah,
they're just crowded with
Well, there's a lot of homeless veterans.
There is a lot of homeless veterans. It's really sad. But yeah, there's a lot of homeless vets. There's a lot of old vets. So, there's for whatever reason, there's a lot of people coming to these hospitals, and so this was 7 years ago now. My appendix burst.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it was a weird. I'll go back and kind of tell leading up into the story because it was such a weird sensation. So I remember this was my final year in college. And I was in the middle of class. This was around noon, and I started getting this pain right here. And it's like, man, I got like a bad stomach ache. What did I eat? And so I get home, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, dude, this hurts a lot. I'm just gonna lay down. And so I ended up sleeping for like 15 hours.
15 hours?
Yeah. I guess my body just like shut down and was just like, I can't deal with this pain.
Wow.
And so I woke up and I was in an excruciating pain.
Okay.
And so like I remember coming up, and so at the time I was living with my parents while going to school. And I remember coming up to my mom and telling my mom, like, Mom, I am in a lot of pain. I need to go to the hospital. And I don't want to throw shade on my mom because I don't think she really understood the situation at the time, but she's like, oh, okay, well, you can just drive yourself there.
Okay.
She had to go to work, to be fair. Like, it's not like she didn't have anything to do. I was just like, are you kidding me, Mom?
Yeah.
All right. So I didn't know this at the time, but I drove myself to the hospital with a burst appendix. So what? Yeah. So so I get to this veterans hospital, and like I said, this place is crowded. It's like you go into the waiting room, and it's just there's literally nowhere to sit. Yeah. And so I called my dad, and my dad at the time, my dad worked from home, and so I was like, Dad, I'm going to the hospital. Can you, just in case something happens, can you come? And he's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll come in a little bit. And so like I go up to the checkout desk, and I'm just like, I'm in excruciating pain. This hurts a lot. And like pointed to like this area, and they're just like, it hurts right there? And I'm like, yeah. And they're just like, what would you rank the pain as? And I'm like, it's probably out of a 1 to 10, it's probably a 10. Yeah. It hurts. Yeah. And they're just like, okay, well, so you might have your appendix burst. So actually that's a medical emergency. So we're going to have to get you an ER right away, or else, some bad stuff might happen. Like, you can die from this, right? And so like this was starting to like click into my head that this is actually a serious problem. And so I get rushed in, and this retired Navy nurse comes in, and this guy is just just has tattoos, everywhere.
Okay.
And he's just like, "Hey, bro, what's up, man? I heard you're having some pain," and I'm just like, "Hi, yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, so we're gonna go take your X-ray. Your appendix burst." But it's okay. People haven't died from that in like 100 years.
Okay.
As long as we get you treated right now.
Okay.
And I'm just like, why is everyone so calm about this?
Yeah, right.
Like,
you may die if we don't treat you now, but
I'm just sitting here. I'm like, shouldn't we have a little sense of urgency? This guy's joking. Call me bro. And so they get I have to strip down naked and put on like the hospital gown and everything, right? And so I get in like the hospital bed and they wheel me over and he's just like, this guy's just a straight up like surfer guy. And he's like, all right, bro, just wait here and another nurse will come and you'll go into the X-ray machine.
Okay.
And so like I'm basically naked lying on this bed outside of the X-ray area. And so I'm like, okay, man. And then so the guy disappears. And 10 minutes goes by. And
10 minutes goes by.
I'm just thinking like, oh, okay. A long time goes by.
What?
I don't even know how long because I don't have my watch. Finally, there's this nurse walking down the hallway and they see me and they walk up to me and the guy's like, who are you? And I'm like, I'm supposed to get an X-ray, I guess. Like my appendix apparently burst. So they're going to assess the damage and figure out what to do. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll be right back. So he comes back after like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, so I'm just going to be honest with you. They forgot about you. And I'm just like, what the fuck you mean they forgot about me? How do you forget about a patient in the hospital?
With a burst appendix, especially.
What do you mean you forgot about me?
Yeah.
And so finally I see a clock and I waited almost 2 hours.
What? At the X-ray?
Outside the X-ray machine because they just forgot about me. And I was just like, are you freaking kidding me? So finally I get in the X-ray machine and then, and like I said, the people that I'm working with, like it's not that they're not professional.
Yeah.
They're just overworked.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
It's just really crowded,
They just don't have enough staff.
Yeah.
Because they just don't have enough funding, if I'm being perfectly honest. And so finally, I have to get prepped for surgery because they have to remove my appendix. And like, do you know what an anesthesiologist is?
Yeah,
like
right.
the person who
gives anesthesia.
Yeah, so they're the person who's like in charge of putting people under, right? And God, that guy was so freaking funny. Like he's just cracking jokes. He's like, "Yeah, man, they're gonna take out your appendix, and do you need your kidneys? Because like, I mean, if we're already digging in there, like, you could probably sell those for a good cost." I'm like, "Shut the fuck up and just take it out." Like, so yeah, that guy was really funny.
Yeah.
And so I got put under, and I woke up in a hospital bed, and finally my parents arrived because I before I went into the X-ray, I called them. I'm like, so my appendix burst, so that's a problem.
Yeah, right.
And so I wake up and my parents are right next to me, and I think my sister came to visit. I can't remember. But right next to me was like this alcoholic, homeless veteran.
Yeah.
So like this guy was like a Vietnam veteran.
A Vietnam veteran. Okay. So
real old school. Like I have nightmares.
Yeah.
Every single night. So it's like sitting next to that guy was a real experience. But yeah, I got out the next day, no, actually my dad drove me home.
Okay.
So I did get a ride home.
Okay.
At least.
Okay, at least. So the moral of the story is that veteran hospital, the people who work there are really cool.
Yeah.
But it's very understaffed and
so
don't really get taken care of very well.
So a couple things that I want to highlight just about like the medical care system in America is a big reason why a lot of these veterans end up going to medical or to VA hospitals is how they're called, is because they can't afford to go to another hospital. And me, I was a broke college student.
Yeah, right.
I'm not going to be able to afford to go to a hospital. I don't really have health insurance. Luckily I have free medical care because of the military, but the service is kind of like,
Yeah.
maybe you might get treated well, maybe you not.
Yeah, or you might get forgotten about.
Or
for
you might
2
get
hours.
forgotten about, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just that kind of thing you would never see here.
Yeah. I mean, that's really true. I feel like I don't know. So like when I have gone to the hospital, I've had a lot of good experiences in the States, right? And it's been very smooth. But because it costs so much, I never want to go.
Yeah.
And it's like I will only go if I absolutely have to. Whereas here, it's kind of like I'm fine. After being here for like 7 years now, I'm finally at the stage where it's like, oh, I'm not feeling so well. Maybe I'll go see a doctor instead of like, oh, I'm really past due. I really need to go see a doctor now, you know?
Yeah.
But it's just, I think it's like a big cultural difference. But, you know, one thing that, so I was talking with my parents about why healthcare in America is so expensive. And I think it also has to do with one of the reasons why college is so expensive too.
Yeah.
Is because like, so in Japan, right, the government pays for insurance, or you can get private insurance too. Like you have those two options, right?
Yeah.
But in the United States, you have private health insurance companies that the government pays subsidies to. And you kind of have to go through these private things. So it's not just like the government pays for it or you pay for it yourself. It's like the government will pay a private company for you, right?
Yeah.
And it's that part that really costs a lot. Because actually, when you think about it, they do the same thing with college tuition too.
Yeah.
So like you don't get money from the government for college tuition. The government pays the loan company, subsidized loan company, and then you get money from them, which is why it's so expensive. Mm-hmm. But in Japan, it's not like that, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically my mom, right? So my parents were, they just left this morning. They were visiting for 2 weeks, and my mom had to go to the clinic for a procedure that in the States cost her $1,000. She actually had to go see two doctors. She went to one doctor and it was $400. She went to the other one to get a prescription. It was $500.
Really?
So it was like $900,000, right? Just like that. It's not very serious, you know, but just like for a very routine thing. But
it's just expensive.
Yeah, but in Japan, she went to one doctor, got diagnosed really quickly. She got the medication.
Yeah.
And it was like $50.
Yeah.
Versus like $1,000, you know? And it was so funny because my mom, she's like, you know, Arthur, I know you like Japan, but I don't think I could ever live here. It is just so different from what I'm used to. It's like a whole other world. But then when she came back from the hospital, she's like, this is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I can see the wheels turning in her mind. Maybe she could live here, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just amazing how that works.
I will say, when I've gone to the doctors here for being sick, and I've never had a serious illness here in Japan, but okay, so let me explain the situation. So in America, you usually have like a family doctor, right? So you'll go to a clinic and you'll register at that clinic, usually near your house, and it's like you get to know the doctor over time. And in Japan, it's kind of basically the same. And I think this might be because we live in Tokyo. Yeah. So they just end up seeing so many people. But so I've had the same doctor for pretty much the whole time that I've been here. So I see this doctor in Omori, and this is like this no nonsense old guy.
Oh yeah.
And
I've had a guy like that
every
before.
time I go to the hospital, and it's like, I feel like I'm dying. I'm like, I've got the flu. Oh my God, this is so bad. I have a fever. And every single time he sees me, he doesn't even look at my paper. He just kind of looks me up and down. And he's like, yeah, you have a cold. Here, here's some medicine. And just like sends me out. And I'm just like, can you make me feel like, you know?
Yeah, like I remember like, so I had like, something on my foot where my foot would get itchy if I wear some sandals, right? And they were like my favorite sandals, so I really wanted to wear them. But I went to the doctor, and it was so funny because like I told him like whenever I put on these sandals, you know, my feet get itchy, and like, can I get something to fix it? He's like, why don't you just stop wearing the sandals? I was just like, I mean, I could do that, but I want these sandals, man. Like, what's going on?
No, that's so funny though, because that's exactly how it is. Because I feel like there's so many doctors here that are just very blunt about things. That are just like, have you just tried stop doing that?
Yeah.
You know?
It's like, why don't you just eat healthier?
Yeah.
You know?
Whereas like in America, I feel like often doctors will just kind of wiggle around and just be like, oh yeah, well, that's a problem, but we've got some cream or something that can help you. It's like here, it's like, just stop doing the thing that hurts you.
I know, and I'm like, yeah, but I want cream. He's like, okay, fine. And so then he bought the cream and he's like, here, get this. And then I was out in like 2 minutes and I felt kind of gypped a bit. I was like, dude, I feel like you should talk to me for a little bit longer, But
it's it's the same way when I get medical checks at my school.
Yeah.
And like last year, I almost burst into laughter.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like I always get stuck with like the really old school old man doctor here. And last year, this guy could actually speak English because usually like the doctors here, obviously they're studying other stuff. They can't speak much English, but this guy was actually pretty good at English. So this guy, I get in and I'm like in my private consultation area, and he's like, "You're fat and you drink too much. Stop and exercise." And I'm just like, "What the? You can't talk to me like that,
I know, bro." Like in the States, you get fired if you talk like that.
It just straight out was like, "Yeah, you're fat and you need to exercise more and you drink too much." It's
just
like,
stop.
Okay, man. Like,
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to crucify me for?
Yeah. Whereas like in the States, I feel like a lot of people are much more like trying to be understanding or like very, very slow. I feel like, so I'm not sure if this is true. Maybe like the listeners can correct me, but I heard that like actually in the States, doctors get paid by hour or something, but in Japan, they get paid by the number of visits they do. So they want to go through as many as possible.
That would make so much sense, actually.
Yeah. I mean, that's just what I heard. I'm not sure if it's for certain, but
that'd be interesting. I'd be curious if that's true or not.
Yeah. So for me, like the moral of the story is, I came to Japan because I was really interested in, well, first it was anime, then I got less interested in that, and I liked the traditional culture, and I'm staying for the convenience, the safety, and the healthcare is also really nice here.
Yeah, I can't complain.
Even if they're a little blunt sometimes,
Yeah. I feel overall, I feel like I'm treated pretty well here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't complain.
Yeah, man. So what are you thinking that you want to talk about next time?
Well, I wanted to talk about Christmas before you brought up the medical stuff.
I'm sorry, man, but you were talking about a doctor's visit, so we can talk about that next week.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, cool.
Well, how was it? お役に立てたらとっても嬉しいです。やっぱり外国人の友達を作ってこういう風に会話ができたら最高じゃないでしょうか。でもほとんどの英語を勉強している方はやっぱり外国人の友達を作れたらいいと思ってるんですけど、いきなり外国人と対面するってなると頭が真っ白になって言葉が出てこないし、言葉が出てこないから話せないんですね。具体的にどうしたら英語を学ぶだけではなく実際に話せるようになって世界の人々と交流できるようになるんでしょうか。そのためにはちょっと独特な英語学習法が必要です。その英語学習法を無料ガイドでまとめました。その無料ガイドをゲットするには You can click up here or you can click the link below this video for more information. As always, thanks for watching and I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, enjoy your English adventures. 一緒に世界とつながりましょう. See you next time.